Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop, Design Thinking for Entrepreneurs, presented in partnership with Google. Grow with Google is an initiative that brings the best of Google's training and tools to help people grow their skills, careers, and businesses. Startups can get strategies and skills to build thriving teams and businesses. But before we get started, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and log into your Google account because we'll be using Google Docs and Google Slides today to work on a couple of activities. So go ahead and sign into your Google account. If you're on a laptop or desktop computer, you can simply open a new tab in your browser and go ahead and log into your Google account using your Google email and password. Then you'll click on Google Apps, or the 9 little gray squares in the top right hand corner where you're signed in, and navigate to Google Drive, or you can click one of the Google apps to start a new file. So once you've done that and you've navigated to your Google Drive, you just click on New, and then click Google Docs, and then click Blank Document. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that as well. You can also feel free at any time to enter any questions you may have as they come up into the chat feature, and I will try to answer them as quickly as I can. Cool. So before we get started, just a little bit about who I am. My name is Marquita, and I'm the Assistant Director for Technology and Training for the Clayton County Library System. I've been working in libraries for a little over 12 years. I come to the library system with a business background. My undergraduate degree is in business administration with a focus in hospitality. And I'm also a small business owner, so I use design thinking myself when I'm coming up with new strategies or ways to address problems in my own business, as well as with some things with the library. So today's agenda. In today's workshop, we're going to focus on the 3 primary objectives, which are to learn the principles of the design thinking process, apply the process to create innovative solutions to identified problems, and consider building out these solutions as personal and/or collaborative side projects throughout the year. The goal today is to familiarize yourselves with the design thinking framework so that you can use it and reuse it over and over to build out fun and meaningful personal projects throughout the year. So what is design thinking actually? Design thinking is a creative problem-solving process that focuses on a user-centered approach to create a solution that is technologically and economically feasible. This approach has been used to brainstorm solutions for societal issues like getting kids to eat healthy school lunches, as well as to help well-established companies redefine their place in a fast-changing industry. Now, what is technologically feasible and economically feasible can change depending on your context, of course. What you're able to create as a student over 4 years will likely differ from what you might be able to create if you had access to the amount of data and/or computing power that many larger tech companies like Google have. Even so, the important thing to keep in mind is that using the design thinking process will provide you with a framework that will be useful even when you don't have a ton of resources available to you. I'll show you a few examples of that later on in the workshop. So to start, let's see what this methodology is all about. The design thinking process was created by the Stanford University and the company IDEO and is being successfully used to create small projects and big ones. The methodology includes 5 phases. Empathize, meaning to observe, engage, and immerse. Define, or express the problem in the form of POVs or point of views. Ideate, or transition from identifying a problem to finding solutions. Prototype, so getting the ideas out of your head and into the real world. And lastly, test. So the next iteration of a prototype, which is test, learn, iterate. So the first step we saw in the process was to establish empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. If we want to focus on the user, our goal as we begin the design thinking process should be to first connect to someone's stories, insights, and emotions. We must put ourselves in their shoes, so to speak. So what do we mean when we say user? Well, the user in design thinking would be the person or population for which you're hoping to build a solution. When you're talking about a user, you want to make sure that you are being as specific as possible. For example, not just parents, but parents of toddlers or parents in New York City. Really put yourself in the shoes of your selected population slash user and empathize with their day to day to brainstorm all of the potential obstacles they may come across. Consider starting from the morning until the evening and walk through their day to identify these challenges. So, now you can navigate to the blank Google Doc that you opened earlier uh, and think about or select a population that you would like to focus on for the purposes of today's exercise. Create a list of at least 10 challenges that specific population faces. Uh, we'll adjust the time a little bit, considering the time that we have, but ideally, you want to be able to identify at least 10 challenges while we think about this. So select a population, so it could be professionals, after school teachers, parents, etc. And use your Google Doc to write down at least 10 challenges that you think that those or that one population that you've selected is facing. We'll give about 5 minutes or so to do that. If you're still working on your 10 challenges, that's totally fine. It's in your Google Doc, or you can use a sheet of paper if that's easier. But this is really just for you to get a feel of the design thinking process. So up next, we want to operationalize the problem. So your goal is to analyze your observations about the user and synthesize them to define the core problems you have identified as a problem statement. So what's a problem statement? Well, instead of Sam needs to learn about nutrition to get a better eating experience during lunch, you may want to try Sam is a busy manager who needs a way to integrate healthy eating habits into his daily life because he doesn't want to feel like he's on a diet. You see the difference? So at this stage, it will help you or help the people on your team gather great ideas to establish features, functions, and any other elements that will allow them to solve the problems or help the users resolve issues with minimum difficulty. And here it is filled in. So this is a visual aid to being able to define the problem. So we can see that Sam is the user. Uh, Characteristics to describe Sam: busy manager. What does Sam need? A way to integrate healthy eating habits. And what are some insights about Sam and what he needs? He doesn't want to feel like he's on a diet. Can totally relate to Sam on that note. Nobody ever wants to feel like they're on a diet. But using this format allows you to easily break down and analyze the problem facing the user, which in this example is Sam. So let's try this. Try synthesizing several of the challenges you've identified previously to come up with one grand problem statement to encompass several of the ones you identified. So define the problem as a problem statement in a human-centered manner. So the username or uh, username is a user characteristic. Who needs user need because insight. So I'll leave this template on the screen as a reference as you work on creating your problem statement. And don't worry if you're feeling like we're going a little bit fast. I definitely am. But the great thing is we're recording this session, so you can always come back and revisit it at a later time. Awesome. So now that we've empathized with our chosen user, analyzed and synthesized those observations to define the problem, it's time to ideate. This is the phase where we think about all the possible solutions that come to mind. For how long? Well, as long as you need. From outlandish ideas to immediately actionable ones, You should engage in unrestricted brainstorming during this time. This is where you engaged in unfiltered, unrestrained brainstorming. I'll say that again. Unfiltered and unrestrained brainstorming. At this stage, anything, any idea is possible at this stage. Now, this next activity I'll kind of walk through. You can try to follow along if you like, or you can just watch us navigate through it on screen. So in your Google Doc, you'll want to create a 2x4 table, and in each section of your table, write out a different idea on how to solve your user's problem. Don't worry about feasibility right now. Blue sky thinking is definitely encouraged. So push past obvious solutions to get to breakthrough ideas. Again, using the Google Doc, write down 8 possible solutions to solve the problem statement you created earlier. No idea is too crazy. Write down every solution that comes to mind. Again, don't worry about the feasibility of these solutions quite yet. It's more important that you write down everything that comes to mind before narrowing in on one or a few in the next stage. Awesome. You guys are doing amazing so far. So, how do we know if these solutions would work in the real world? Well, that leads us to our next phase. We prototype. Produce inexpensive, scaled down versions of the solutions created in the previous stage. As you build prototypes one by one, they are either accepted, improved and re-examined, or rejected based on the user's experience. This is an experimental stage. So how do you know when you're done? Well, you'll have a better idea of the constraints inherent within the product or feature, the problems in the solution you're currently prototyping, and then we'll have a more informed perspective of how real users would behave, think, and feel when interacting with the end product. So with prototyping, you're basically drawing out or crafting what is possible, keeping in mind your minimum viable product, or MVP. And what's an MVP, you ask? MVP, again, stands for minimum viable product. The idea is that the product, app, website, or whatever you decide to build is developed with sufficient features to satisfy early adopters. The final, complete set of features is only designed and developed after considering feedback from the first users that test what you've created. You want to make sure that what you create is functional even at its first stage. So let's say your goal was to create a vehicle that could take you places. In the example here, there isn't much you can do with just the wheel or two wheels with an axle or the body of the car without a wheel or an engine. So here's a better idea of what iterating with MVPs looks like. We see that even with just a simple skateboard, you're able to achieve your goal of taking you places. The fancier transition and additions to ultimately make it a fully fledged and swanky car can come later. Got it? So your next step at this stage of the process will be to build rough prototypes to learn how to make ideas better. So you pick one of your feasible ideas and flesh it out more how you would build this solution. So think about what technology you would need, the time frame required to build this solution, whether or not you need money and how much money you will need, the resources you currently have available, and anything else that you would need to help you build this solution. Um, you can come back and do this at a later time. So we're just going to go ahead and move forward. And again, we are recording this session, so you can come right back here to the library's YouTube channel and watch it as many times as you need. So your final stage of the design thinking is testing. For the sake of today's experiment, we're not going to get to experiment with this phase, but if you were to implement the design thinking process in real life, you would definitely want to test out your solution, evaluate it, and depending on how it goes, you may or may not have to go back and repeat the different phases. So you could jump back to ideating if your testing didn't go as well. You may even have to go all the way back to prototyping or going back and redefining the problem to be more feasible. Testing is an iterative phase. What does that mean? It means that you continue to go back to make change, tweak features, and in some cases, you may even decide to scrap the solution for a different one you identified during the prototyping stage. In testing, you want to make sure that you test the complete product using the best solutions identified during the prototyping phase. Refine and alter as needed, as this is an iterative process. So I know that was a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time, but As you can see, the design thinking process can be used as a solution creating and problem solving methodology for a range of challenges faced by a variety of users. Feel free to incorporate this process into your daily life to create solutions or improve solutions that may already exist in your day to day. So that brings us to the end of our workshop today. Again, I hope you have enjoyed this workshop and will take these skills with you into your next project. The library is a Grow with Google partner, and we have classes that are available for both learning digital skills as well as improving your entrepreneurship skills as well. If you've signed up for our e-newsletter, we frequently send out the information for you to sign up for those classes, or feel free to visit our website and social media to find out more about Clayton County Library System's partnership with Grow with Google classes. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again and hope that you will share this information as well as our other programs with friends and family. Thank you.